Thank you for joining today's event, Food for Your Food, sponsored by the Iowa Work-Based Learning Coordinators and hosted by the Iowa Intermediary Network. Let's begin the session with an introduction of our panelists who will take a moment to introduce themselves. Let's begin with Jen.
Well, good morning and thanks for having me on your discussion here today. And like Terry said, my name is Jennifer Bentley and I work as a dairy field specialist with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. So my office is based in Winnesheek County. However, I serve dairy producers in all of Northeast Iowa. And so my role as a dairy field specialist is to provide education to producers, education to youth, and education to consumers who are interested in dairy. So a little bit of background of myself. I've been in Extension since 2010. And prior to that, I was a research technician, CAF manager at the Northeast Iowa Community-Based Dairy Foundation in Kelmer. So I went to NICC in the Dairy Herd Management program. And then I transferred to Iowa State where I got my Bachelor of Science degree and then received my Master's of Agriculture at Iowa State through the online program there. So that's kind of a little bit of background. I did grow up on a dairy farm in Mitchell County, and that's where my family is still operating their dairy operation here today.
All right, thanks, Jen. How about Bill? Can you give us a brief background on your education and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, thanks for having me. My name is Bill Hayes. I'm the feed department manager at 5 Star Cooperative up in New Hampton, Iowa is our main office. So I went to Iowa State long time ago. It was an ag business. I worked for as a nutritionist for 2 different cooperatives for about 15 years, and then mainly swine and beef, dabbled in dairy a little bit. In 2006, I became a feed department manager, and I've been working in that position for that long, however long that's been, 15 years or something like that. So
very good. Thank you for that, Jen and Bill. We're going to start off here. Tell us a little bit, this is a pretty broad question, but why is there a need for animal nutritionists? Either of you can start.
Okay. Well, I can kick it off, Bill, if you want me to, and certainly provide comments. I think
and Jen and Bill, that may seem like a very like intuitive. I mean, everyone should know that, right? But if we're not in the industry, why is it so important that we have people like yourselves that are animal nutritionists and in this field?
Well, I think there's always going to be a need for nutritionists raising animals because one, we want them to be productive animals no matter what they're producing, whether that's producing meat, producing milk. So we want healthy animals, and there is a lot of things that get involved with feeding our animals, and those things can change on a annual basis. They can change on a daily basis. Weather events, how we're raising our crops to feed, to raise that feed. There's just all kinds of things that encompass, raising those animals and being able to provide quality feed. So I think we're always going to have a need, and there's, different types of animals. So I work mainly, 100% of my time is with dairy, which are ruminants. And so they get fed differently than a pig, right? Because pigs are monogastric. So they don't have the same digestive system as a cow would. So understanding the biology of the different animals is important.
How about you, Bill? Anything to add to that?
We need nutritionists. It's pretty complex. It's, you know, and I've got nutritionists on staff for both a couple of beef and a couple of swine. A lot of things we're looking at, it's not, we just put rations together and we're good for the next year. I mean, our nutritionists are looking at to have an economical, we've got to have economical feed, and that's going to depend on the health of the animals, the feeds available. We've seen challenges in this last year, not being able to get our traditional feeds that we've used. So there's times every week we're making changes in the diets. It's just a constant moving target, and we can't, we need the people, that are able to do that.
Okay. I might come back to some of the things you said just as we get further in this conversation, because I know that I'm going to be very intrigued by this conversation myself. How do you develop a plan for ensuring proper nutrition for the animals? Walk us through that process.
The plan, so a lot of it again, it depends what animal species we're talking about. If we're talking about beef, it may be what forages do we have available? Do they have corn silage? Do they have hay? And then we use a lot of byproducts. And so our nutritionists, they go through on a pretty constant basis and see what feeds are available and for how long, and they put the plan together to grow that animal as fast as we can, as efficient as we can, and as cost productive as we can. Swine's kind of the same way. We use different feeds, of course, but we're just constantly looking at what's available and what's going to make that pig grow the fastest and the most economical. We got to keep these guys profitable, and so it's just a constant. We're constantly looking and changing diets through their life, through the lifetime of that animal.
And Bill, again, this might be kind of a naive question, but who are the people that you're working with in developing that plan? I mean, I'm assuming it could be individual farmers, it could be other people on your team, your suppliers. I don't know, like who are you having all those conversations with?
So we have, it's the conversation starts with our nutritionist and farmer feeders. That's where it starts, but we work with a lot of different feed companies, and we get a lot of information from different feed companies also on which products to use. I'm trying to think. I'm not maybe quite sure what you're asking there.
I just didn't know if, as you gather your information, who are you getting the information from, and who are you working with?
I mean, really, it is. It's our nutritionists and the farmers, and our nutritionists. They know what products we handle here at our two feed mills, and they're designing their diets for their customers on what ingredients we carry, and we carry. I don't know if it's hundreds, but we carry a lot of ingredients, and so our nutritionists are working with these guys if depending on what kind of feeds are available. And
okay,
yeah, and our nutritionists, they do work with the feed companies. Then we get a lot of information. We work with probably eight different feed companies that we work with, and so a lot of the information comes down from the feed companies to our nutritionists to the customers then.
Okay, Jen, anything to add there?
Yeah, I would agree with comments from Bill. From a dairy perspective too. I mean, most of our dairy producers, at least here in Iowa, are raising their own forages, so their corn silage, their haylage, and so they they harvest that product, and that's what they're going to feed their animals for the whole rest of the year. And so working with industry contacts to make sure that they're putting up the highest quality forage is pretty important when we're talking about balancing that diet for that animal, because if we put up a poor quality product or poor quality forage for our animals, that's going to affect how we feed it. And then also, if it's lower quality, then we got to look at other products that we have to also put into the diet to make sure that animal stays healthy and we're feeding that animal correctly. So a lot of that goes into it. I know I get on a lot of farms that have what they call team meetings. So they invite their nutritionist on the farm. They'll have a veterinarian, they'll have, you know, their herd manager there, and they all kind of sit around the table together and talk about the plan for how they're managing their animals, how they're feeding their animals, because there's a lot of things that go into it, especially with dairy, as far as, you know, right now it's winter. So we have baby calves that we're feeding that might be housed outside. So, you know, we might have to increase milk replacer to those baby calves to make sure that they're staying warm and they're growing. We get into summertime and it's hot. So cows don't want to eat when it's hot. So how do we make sure that they're getting enough nutrients when it's hot outside, and getting the proper nutrition when they're not consuming as much?
Great. That kind of leads me into my next question, and you mentioned it just briefly, Jen, but what are the different types of feed and when might they be used?
Well, predominantly for dairy, they are going to be forages and grains. So a lot of your corn silages and haylage are going to make up probably 60%, 60 to 70% of the cow's diet. And then you're talking your grains. So any type of corn products. So ground corn, high moisture corn. We have byproducts as well. So dried distillers grain, cottonseed, soybean oil, those types of products are also going to be fed to the animal or to the cow when we're talking about dairy cattle.
Okay.
And Bill, you'll have to inform me on the swine side.
Yeah, and you know, actually beef is real similar, you know, similar type products. Corn silage, sometimes haylage, a source of protein, whether it's a liquid protein with a lot of urea in it or all natural protein. That's beef. On the swine side, it's fairly simple compared to dairy. You know, we use mainly corn, bean meal, DDGs, corn distillers, calcium, phosphorus, amino acids like lysine, D-L-methionine, threonine, vitamins, trace minerals, and some sort of a fat source, possibly choice white grease or corn oil.
Okay, great. Jen, you mentioned a lot of, you know, your farmers might have what you call your team meetings, where there's a lot of different voices at the table. What is some advice that you provide to farmers or to some of those folks who are looking for nutritional products that will advance their production and the health of their animals? So, you know, can you talk about some of the topics that maybe you give advice on, whether that's growing the animal, reproduction, quality of the meat?
Yeah, I think I kind of understand the question. You know, sometimes it's not always about what we're feeding the animal, it's how we're raising the animal too. So when we take a look at recommendations, it's also, you know, making sure the cow is comfortable in their free stall. So what kind of bedding do they have? What kind of free stall are they lying in? And, you know, looking at those types of things. Do they have access to the feed? Because we can balance a ration all we want, but if the cow doesn't have access to it, or it's not available to them at certain times, then we're kind of counteracting what we're trying to do with the nutrition. As far as different products, working for extension, we're research based. So obviously we look for what is the research telling us. So a lot of these products have been researched, and we look at the science as far as what are the benefits of using certain products. Will it help with overall health? Will it help with increased milk production? Will it help during the calving season, as they're freshening? Is it going to help them that way? So we kind of look at what does the research tell us too on those products.
Has there been anything recently with research that has been kind of an eye-opening new discovery that you can think of?
Bill, do you have any ideas?
Or an example of how that research has kind of driven then the advice that you give to your farmers or your teams of people?
So kind of, gosh, and I'm not going to remember I really don't know of a lot of new things that have come onto the market lately in like the swine and the beef. Some things where our nutritionists, we call them nutritionists, but when we look at what they do, in the swine side, we don't necessarily have these team meetings, but just some of the things that our nutritionists deal with. Nutrition is first and foremost, but they also deal with a lot of health. A healthy group of pigs will get fed different than a group that's not so healthy. My guys, they walk through barns every week. They help our producers with animal care. What is comfortable for a pig or beef cattle. They actually will help on how big do we take these animals before we sell them. We do help them with marketing, but one of the newest, and it's not really new anymore, but and of course I can't remember what we call these type of products, but we're using just like people do. We're feeding our animals some, and Jen, maybe you can help me, but we're feeding them like some oregano, kind of some all natural type products. And we found that helps with, might help with feed intake. It might help if the pigs aren't the healthiest, it helps them grow better during times like this. And there's been a big push in the last several years for these type of products rather than and just trying to keep pigs healthy rather than treat them with antibiotics when they get sick. That's been the big push I think on the swine and the beef side is we want to keep animals healthy, and we don't necessarily treat them with antibiotics every time they get sick. There may be alternative ways to help with that.
All right, thank you. So for young people looking to get into a field like this or career like this, what is the career outlook here in Iowa? And could you talk a little bit more about the education that is required? So first, career outlook. Is this something that they're, I'm assuming that Iowa's always going to be a top producer
for my co-op, I need nutritionists, and I don't see that going away, and I'm doing okay, but I'm always looking for more nutritionists, and I get interns in every summer. Sometimes they see what the nutritionists do and they decide, this isn't for me. Most of my nutritionists, do come through, with most of them have a animal science degree. And I know from my time and when my nutritionists start, they find out, they go to school for 4 years, but they really find out how little they know about production agriculture when they come and start working for me. A degree is a good starting point, and I've had some of my truck drivers and mill people have gone on to be some very successful nutritionists, but the vast majority do come with a 4-year degree, and there's tons of potential. There are I know a lot of people in feed, and everybody seems to be looking for a good nutritionist out there. We work with a lot of independent producers, and there, I see the demand. The demand's just there.
All right, that's good to hear. How about you, Jen?
I would agree. And just thinking about like when I was in college and my classmates, from the community college, a few of them went on and transferred to a university to get their 4-year degree in either animal or dairy science or some type of 4-year agricultural degree before they went on to be nutritionists. So I think that's, if they're looking to be a nutritionist, of looking at a 4-year degree is probably going to be what they're going to have to look towards. And then, there are nutritionists out there who have masters or PhDs if they, get into some research of some of these products. So if you want to be somebody that's kind of doing the research end of, the feed products, then that's maybe you want to advance your education a little bit further. But, I think those are some great avenues to explore. Great. And I would, just an example, just thinking about like every year we host a 4-state dairy nutrition conference. We hold it in Dubuque. And so it's 4 states of actual dairy nutritionists. And we typically get like close to 400 people attend. So that kind of gives you an idea of like the number of people involved in nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
At least from the 4 states.
That's a big number.
Mm-hmm.
Along those same lines, and this is our last question, what advice would you have for young people, specifically high school students? What types of classes should they be taking? Perhaps, are there extracurricular activities, FFA? How can they start kind of exploring this type of career path? Or what advice would you have for them? Jen, well, you mentioned the importance of biology, earlier. What other classes could they be taking right now to do some more exploring if they're interested in the animal nutrition area?
Well, and I think as a high school age student, there's opportunities to take college classes, right? So they could take some of those introductory level classes that get them exposed to animal production. And, anytime they can get some hands-on experience, whether that's, maybe just working on a farm and understanding, how animals are raised or housed or, what they like. For example, my son is in high school right now and he's working with a hog producer. So he's kind of understanding, some of the basics of what it takes to raise a pig. So just, understanding the general basics of animal agriculture would be good too.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of agree with everything she said there. You learn a lot at the university, but I feel you're going to learn a lot more when you graduate and get out in the real world. But animal production classes I feel are very important. Nutrition classes. I mean, I would, on those two, I would take anything available that you could. I do agree, and I've seen the shift over the years. It used to be if you came from a farm, you dealt with livestock. Seemed like any kid that lived on a farm, dealt with livestock. I do encourage them, if you know, to find a farmer, to work for a farmer. Farmers are always looking for help. It's just good to get out there and see what that's like. You know, during the summer, I'd love to get interns in here, and I show them, our interns, they kind of learn the whole feed business. They learn from working in the mills, seeing how the feed's manufactured. They ride with drivers, see how it's delivered. They work with our production people out on the farms. They work with our nutritionists. I really like to see our nutritionists to understand the whole system, kind of from start to finish, you know, in every aspect. And any activity I believe you can get involved that has to do with farming, you're gonna learn. And you know, whether it's FFA and 4-H, and you know, starting in high school. And a lot of people, you know, I've had a lot of interns over the years. They think they want to be in dealing with livestock and nutrition, and they get out here and they go, oh, these pigs aren't what I thought, you know, and they, you know, maybe they say, I still like the beef side, but and vice versa. And so I just think you want to get well-rounded, and you know, I'm familiar with Iowa State, and so, you know, they have a really good AMSI club down there, and I just think you need to get involved with everything you can to find out as much about animal agriculture as you can.
And that's great advice, that to have students do all the research that they can, and experiences. And like you said, every farmer is looking for help. Everyone is looking for help. So that's a great way for a high school student to get their feet wet, so to speak. A sincere thank you to our panelists, Jen and Bill. Such great information. We appreciate your time and discussion today. On behalf of the Iowa Work-Based Learning Coordinators and the Iowa Intermediary Network, thank you for attending today's event, Food for Your Food. Be sure to visit iowain.org/Connection Lab for additional resources and digital content. Thank you both today for your time. It was great conversation. We appreciate everything, and we appreciate what you're doing in agriculture and helping feed our animals better.
Thanks.
All right.